Kia ora te koutou, Markie here, very knackered and tired and grizzled and rough around the edges. It's Saturday, I slept most of the day and I haven't got much energy for anything really. I've been looking forward to doing some videos and I didn't think I had the energy to do it, but I started to get into stuff. But I'm kind of, as always I guess really, I always do videos that are very in the moment and very much about what I'm most interested in or passionate about at the time. Which I guess is good, isn't it, really? You know, it means I'm not sort of talking about something and going through the motions when I don't really want to be doing it. So for that reason, the videos I'm recording today in my grizzled state, my super grizzled state, are all kind of playtime fontaine things. They're none of the more serious stuff that we cover. So those of you new to the channel, it's actually quite a serious channel. So I'm a psychotherapist, talk a lot about pain and how to overcome it, stuff like that. But in emotional pain. But I also kind of cover quite a range of things really. So this is this is the there's the yin and the yang. I don't know which one this is, but this is the talking about the lighter side, talking about fun stuff. And I want to talk about a film called Troll Hunter. And I shouldn't not do film reviews because I have a very poor memory. Also because of sensory, I think it's because of sensory processing disorder. I'm terrible with things like actors. So I never recognise actors from one film to the next. So I never know who's in a film. And I'm not very good at retaining a lot of information, so things like directors and stuff like that. So I'm not kind of movie reviewer that tells you this was the debut of director so and so and blah blah blah, and lots of kind of useful facts and things like that. And the other thing is that often a lot of plot things go completely over the top of my head. so I'm the last person that should be reviewing things really, but I kind of have this urge to when I watch something, particularly if it's something that I enjoy. And I watched a film called Troll Hunter. Now, I thought it was a horror film, and I kind of watched it in that kind of frame of mind. But actually, it's. I think it was. I've seen it described as a dark fantasy, which might be a better description of it. So it's something that if you don't like horror films but you like adventure and stuff like that, you probably would be okay with it really. It is dark, and it does have the feel of a horror film because it's a found footage film. And generally we associate found footage with horror, don't we? So Troll Hunter is a Norwegian film, and I watched it with Norwegian subtitles, which I think was maybe a good thing and a bad thing. Because I think a lot of stuff, I don't think the translation was very good at all. I just had that sense. But I got the kind of gist of it. And actually the fact that it was in another language kind of helped in a way. It kind of helped take me into this other world, really. So I'm not going to give. Should I give spoilers in this? No, I'm not going to give any. I'll try not to give any spoilers in this. So what I liked about this film was the visuals and the ambience of it. It was set in these amazing kind of field and mountain locations with really amazing skies, very brooding, dark skies and very kind of epic landscape. And it's a little bit like, often people go to kind of mountain areas and say, oh, isn't it beautiful and lovely? But actually sometimes I think it can be quite sinister. I've spent a lot of time in the Llanberis Pass in Wales, stayed there quite a few times. And on some days it's just kind of, really foreboding. And sometimes I felt that almost like there are, like in the film really, that there are the spirits of the mountains want me dead. They don't want me there. I've had that kind of feeling. It gives you that kind of feeling that this is, because we feel. I've talked about this in other videos. I think we feel like we've conquered nature. With our comfy sofas and our cushions and our microwaves and Netflix and everything. We think that that we've conquered the world, that we're safe, that we're civilized. Dog agrees with me. I don't hear the dog barking. But actually we're not. we're what's the New Model Army lyrics? Perched thin and fragile upon the land, which we're perched thin and fragile upon the land. So I think this film, the ambience of this film, and the lighting and the locations and the way they're used, kind of give you very much this sense that we are small, fragile, and there are bigger, stronger forces of nature, far that will outlive us, by probably millions of years, and we are maybe here by their good graces. And I guess that that would be a good, if you to look at this film as a metaphor, because it does, I don't think it's a great spoiler to say that it features trolls. And trolls are kind of great images for the kind of rocky, mountainous, austere, bleak, dangerous aspects of the landscape and nature. So that was a huge thing for me. I think the other thing as well that kind of helped probably is, I think if you were Norwegian and you watched this, you'd watch it in a whole different way, because you get more nuances from the actual words, which were being lost in the translation. I'm sure they were. And also, I think a lot of the humour didn't come across in the translation, which, as I said in the last video, that's fine by me, because actually I find a lot of humour in dramas quite annoying. I think generally it's because it's not that good humour, and it's kind of like, I feel a bit kind of like, oh, I'm supposed to laugh at this, I'm supposed to find this funny, but it's not, So I'm all for humour in dramas. I think it's very good to have humour in dramas, but it's got to be good humour. It's got to be funny. It's got to be comparable with comedy. Not just some kind of lame thing that everyone laughs at because there's a kind of psychological cue to laugh. So I missed a lot of the humour, and also the fact that a lot of the actors in it were actually comedians. From what I've read, a lot of them were well-known Norwegian comedians, but I didn't know that. I hadn't seen any of these people before, so I think that added to my enjoyment of it. The one particular character in there is very dour, says very little. And I just love that, and he was one of the people I believe that was a comedian, and I think if I'd known him as a comedian, that would have I wouldn't have been able to get into that character so quickly, because I'd have been kind of expecting something different. I'd expect him to crack a joke or do something, or not take him seriously. Fantastic film. And a lot of people have said it's terrible. I think it's been called the best of the worst, or the worst of the best. I think I love horror. I think this is kind of quasi-horror. I think most horror films are rubbish. I think nearly all horror films are rubbish. That's a big statement, isn't it? I love horror films. I think I could list on the fingers of one hand, maybe two hands, good horror films that I think are good. So this is one. You could argue about the horror, but I wouldn't argue about the good. You might hate it. It's low budget, but actually the effects are pretty good. I love the way folklore is weaved into it. There's a thing about blood of Christians, which I think which comes from troll lore, from folklore. And I think that's very interesting. They included that in this, and I thought that was quite kind of brave, because that kind of could added a kind of almost like a supernatural element into it, which wasn't really in the film. It's not a supernatural horror or supernatural film. Apart from this kind of confuses things a little bit, so I'm not sure whether they should have added that in, really. I think they're a bit brave, but there's something very interesting which I learned afterwards through researching. I do research things sometimes. That Norway has got a really interesting relationship with Christianity and with the church, in that it's got this massively high church membership, because the church, a bit like in the UK, or certainly in England, you've got the church and state are conjoined. So the Queen is head of state. She's also head of the Church of England. In Norway it's like that, but even more so that actually by correct me if you're Norwegian and you know more about this, correct me politely, but at one point I think, or it might still be the case, that by default people were kind of assumed to be members of the state church, and also that the church and state were so heavily intermingled that a lot of state posts and state administration was actually done by the church. So and now apparently it's got a very, very low quite compared to other European countries, a much lower proportion of the population are identified as Christian. Probably because they're rebelling from, this kind of very paternal kind of assumptive church. So, it's interesting that Christianity grew massively when it was under persecution. But if you try and kind of impose Christianity on people, it tends to have the opposite. People, basically, that's what we're like, isn't it? If somebody tries to make us do stuff, we go the other way. So Norway has got, in many ways, I think there's more antagonism towards Christianity, and I don't know how this kind of relates to a lot of the. So I listen to but some Scandinavian heavy metal bands. And there's a big rise of paganism there, and that is the kind of the Norse paganism that's coming back, and also a big interest in different forms of Satanism. And I wonder, how much of that is connected to, that they felt very yoked by the church, and they want to kind of put two fingers up to the British, so I say two fingers up to the church, and the Christianity that it represents. So that's kind of in the mix as well. And there's a bit of, from what I've read as well, there's a little bit of satire, which I might not have liked actually. I think they have a bit of a dig at Poles in there, and obviously Polish immigrants, depending on which way you look at it, immigrants. Lots of Polish people in the UK, and they're kind of having a bit of a dig, I think, about Poles, and kind of it's kind of humorous, but I don't know whether it's almost sort of bordering on the racist in some ways. Really, it's like the Poles are kind of. How do I describe it again without spoilers? They're kind of seen as they're kind of the kind of people. They're kind of portrayed as people that would do anything for money and wouldn't ask too many questions. Which I guess for a lot of people that emigrate from their country of origin and go to, they're desperate people. So I guess that's maybe that's an unfair stereotype. Maybe that's a fair stereotype. People have to survive. It's very difficult when people particularly in a place where there's a different language and all that kind of thing. So I don't know if it's a little bit offensive to Poles. If you're Polish or Polish extraction, have you seen the film? Be really interested to hear your opinion on that. So it's supposed to be comedy. I don't know whether it crosses lines or not. It might just be good, good clean fun, or it might be something that's kind of gone into a more discriminatory place. I don't know, but kind of went over the top of my head watching it in subtitles and not being aware of all the cultural references there, and I only picked that up on looking at reviews afterwards. Couldn't find any reviews on YouTube. I think I found one review on YouTube maybe, which is why I thought it'd be good to review on here. So I'm not going to tell you about the director. I'm not going to tell you how it was made or blah 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 blah. There is a drive to make a sequel, which I have mixed feelings about really, and also a drive to kind of Hollywoodize it, which I think everyone that loves the film is adamantly opposed to for very good reasons, because by making it in a kind of Hollywood style, you'd kill off all the things that are great about the film. So, Troll Hunter. Yeah, check it out. Don't confuse it with the cartoon series. Otherwise you'd be very confused. I hope you enjoy it, and if you don't enjoy it, that's okay, because we're all different, and you'll find something else that you enjoy. So if you know the film, and you can add anything to this conversation, please do. Rangimarie.